Hello and welcome to Upside, where every week we dig behind the headlines affecting European venture. Today it is Mads and myself. We're going solo. What are we talking about this week? We've got Viktor Orban, who's been ousted from Hungary. What does this mean for European startups and our ecosystem? Anthropic's app builder, who's going to get crushed? GPT Cyber versus Mythos? The solo founder unicorn is here, or is it? Compute scarcity and what that means for markets, Musk in space, deal of the week, and our predictions.
This show is not investment advice, and the hosts of this episode may be invested in the funds and companies featured.
Now, Mads, my good man, how are you? You've been away on holiday, haven't you?
I'm terrific. Yeah, just back from Italy. Such a beautiful country. Oh,
pasta and wine by the sea. What was that?
And
what was
plenty
the deal?
of gelato. Copious amounts.
Love it. Did the girls have fun?
They had a blast. It was so good.
Oh, lovely. Good for you. It was an extended Easter as well. Good for you.
Yes.
You didn't miss much back here. We had I think we had our summer in London. We had our one day of summer while you were away, so you didn't miss much.
What's up with Lomaxius? He not joining us?
No, he's underwater today. Andrew's underwater, so it's just me and you. But it's lovely. We get a little SuperSeed loving. Me and you talking, shooting the stuff. I won't swear. Shooting the breeze. And we're talking about something that doesn't feel necessarily all that tech-centric or all that investor-centric, which is Viktor Orban being ousted from Hungary and Peter Magyar coming in as the new PM. So something I didn't know was that Hungary is, or was, hopefully in the past tense, was the most corrupt country in the EU, according to Transparency International. Orban is now out. On the surface, this looks just like a European politics story. But for us, we want to talk about capital flow, it's about investing, startups, founding, and how all of this is going to affect us in Europe, because I think it is. So Viktor Orban, when I was looking at his legacy, he started out as a very progressive, smart, kind of cool dude, but spent the last decade looking after Russia as China's circuit breaker in the EU, blocking Ukraine's financing deal, sanctions packages, and rearmament loans. So it became quite difficult. I don't know why, obviously, maybe we never will, but Peter Magyar is now in. He takes over midsummer, hopefully unblocking 90 billion euros of EU funding, 20 new sanction packages, the Hungarian defense spending bill will get greenlit, and some Russian financial assets might come through and hit the system. So real money moving through the network is what we're hopefully looking for. Before I ask you to tee this one up for us, Mads, what some things that are on my mind, maybe you'll cover these, but who is Peter Magyar? Do we know anything about him? Will he be the unlock that we hope for, or will power corrupt him too? Are we going to see more capital flows? If so, will they be meaningful? How quickly will they hit if they do come? And it looks like at first inception, a defense spending only plan or story, but Peter Magyar has also been talking about turning Hungary into a knowledge-based economy. I'm not sure if he can do that or how that's going to work, but where would you take? What's your take?
There's a lot to talk about here, Dan. I think you're absolutely right. This is not kind of square center of venture capital and technology, but it's very much about Europe, and it's an important component of what's going on in Europe. Now, Magyar, he is not kind of a lovey-dovey liberal internationalist, but he is much more pro-European and pro-EU than Orban was. He comes out of Orban's party. He's a renegade who was under Orban's wings and left the party to set up his own movement, and he's now trounced Orban, his former leader in this election.
It was decisive, right? I forget the numbers, but I remember seeing the seated chart, like the parliament seated chart, and it was like a proper trouncing.
Very much so. And it's interesting to try and dissect some of the backdrop. Now, obviously coming from the land of the Brexits, which we are in here, you can sometimes be forgiven for thinking that there isn't there a lot of criticism of the EU everywhere and all the bureaucrat bashing and what's Brussels done now and all this stuff. Magyar, a big reason for him winning the election was that the Hungarians were so sick and tired of Orban's stance in the European Union and the fact that he was siding with Russia and China rather than with kind of friends and partners here in Europe. And people wanted to be closer to the Union, and that's why they threw Orban out. And that's really interesting. 10 years ago at the time of the referendum here in the UK, people were saying, oh, the next is France and Italy and everybody, Greece, everybody else. Well, it turns out that actually the EU is really, really popular across Europe, in many places more popular than local governments. So it's just kind of, that's an interesting context, I think, for this. Orban, as you said, he gave Russia and China kind of a veto around a lot of things in the EU. That's not very helpful. It's almost sort of like a fifth column that undermines things from the inside. Hopefully that's over now. I don't think we should expect kind of a total 180 from Hungary. I think they'll still have the reservations. There's still a lot of business they're doing with China. And in many ways, that's fine. We want to do business with China, right? We just don't want to give China
business with China, right?
Absolutely. We just don't want to give China a veto over our foreign policy. And I think those are important things to separate. So what does it mean for us? Huge unlock around defense. It means that Hungary, they can now unlock their own safe application, kind of access to the European funds for defense investment. It means, as you say, some of these vetoes are unlocked around what happened to Ukraine. So there are lots of good things there that will help things move better and faster. I think if you look at downstream, again, defense is going to be a big component of this. One of the things Macchia has been talking about is turning Hungary from what it is today, which is still very much an assembly place where you assemble things from kind of Chinese manufacturers, and even BMW, I think, assembles cars there and others, to more high value add. And what is that? It's a bit of a slogan, but I think people are looking to Poland and looking to the way that economy has transformed and say, we would like some of that here as well. And of course, you can't talk high value add without talking about tech and software. So there is a hope and expectation that Hungary could become the next sort of tech hub or tech growth leader in Central and Eastern Europe. And hopefully they'll find a way to get it done.
It'll take a while though. I mean, Poland was on the rise for 15 years, maybe you could argue. So I think it's going to take a little bit of a time before his knowledge-based economy and his new infrastructure, and also how you get beyond all the corruption and reinstate all the institutions. So
that's the big risk.
Yeah.
And arguably Hungary starts with worse institutions than Poland did. So there is a hill to climb.
Well, good luck, break legs, wallets, hearts, whatever you need, Peter Magyar. I hope you make it a roaring success. And we do see, because my sense is we'll see some fairly quick flips in the EU with regards to all of the things that were blocked by Orban. So hopefully by the end of this summer, we'll start to see some movement and some action, which I think will help the European story and the positivity.
Well, I think one of the questions you asked was around, can it unlock the 28th regime? What can it do for startups? I don't actually think Orban was the biggest problem there. I think we have plenty of other kind of vested interests around Europe that are blocking those things in itself. I think it was actually more about defense and foreign policy, and those are also important components.
Well, that's all right, because I mean, there's so much of a defense push across the VC industry, across governments, across startups, that there will be some capital flowing through those good hills. So I kind of put it all in the same bucket, but we'll see. Let's go further afield. Let's talk about Anthropic. We did do a bit of a mega deep dive into Anthropic's business model last week, but there's more, as in there's another product. It's Anthropic's app builder, Let's Ship Something Great, which was leaked, you could argue, maybe this week. But anyway, whether it was on purpose or not, we will find out, I'm sure. But 6 months ago on this show, you called it. You said Frontier Labs will either become application companies or consolidate into hyperscalers. And you were right. So this is just one of their latest moves. Anthropic is now building the full stack app builder. They've hired Workday CTO, and from what I can tell, they're now hoovering talent from all the incumbents. No longer focused just purely on Claude, they're building product. So this also means that the margin story has now collapsed. So that's going to be a challenge for other startups, obviously. If Anthropic owns the model, the interface, the design, the sales motion, the enterprise value, everything, they keep the full value stack. B2B SaaS founders, remember them? Well, they used to be able to differentiate by building on top of these frontier models. That is no more, I would argue. It also does raise the specter of another thing that should bother us, insofar as Europe has no equivalent move. OpenAI is doing it, Anthropic's doing it, xAI is doing it. We don't have a European frontier lab. Now, I put in brackets in my notes here, Mistral and Amy. Yes, but we don't have the capital, we don't have the operator talent, we don't have this vertical integration piece. So the US labs, it looks like they're going to own the whole stack. So is that fair? Where would you start? What would you pick up on this piece?
Well, there's a lot to unpack, and let's take some of those bits. But I just thought it was worth, before we go there, to talk a little bit about Mike Krieger, who is a fabulous operator. He built Instagram as a co-founder, sold that, built a phenomenal business there. And then, he left Meta in 2018. He created another company called Artifact, which failed. And then he joined Anthropic 2 years ago as chief product officer. And he has just been absolutely cooking there. He shipped the Model Context Protocol, which everybody rushed to integrate. He didn't design Claude Code, but he was part of driving the revenue ramp around that. He also joined Figma's board last summer, and Dylan Feldover from Figma was really excited about having him on board. But what happened now in the last week is he's left the board again, just as it looks like Anthropic now is creating a design challenger to Figma with all the AI goodness inside. So good or bad, he is somebody who is moving and shaking and making things happen. Another thing to mention for all us Anthropic and Claude fanboys and gals out there is it looks like Opus 4.7 is coming soon.
You're going to be a happy man, aren't you?
Oh, it's like Christmas coming early. It's just so good.
It's so powerful. 4.6. I think I've told you this before, but the kids and I will ask it questions in the car, and then ask it to give us a quiz at the end of the quiz. My kids are 5 and 7, so it's just, even on that basic level, it's just like talking to a buddy in the car. It's just so smart. I love it.
Yeah. It is really powerful. But you asked a bunch of other things, I think, about what happens with SAS and what happens with European Frontier
Do you remember SAS? There was a thing called SAS. Do you remember
What's that? No, I think European Frontier Labs, I actually think Mistral is doing much better than we feared they might a year ago. They're growing rapidly. And the approach they're taking is very much that of being the AI integrator and the AI enabler for European enterprise.
I think it's a solid strategy. A solid strategy. Yeah.
Rock solid. And they won't be the only game in town. We know there are others coming through the system. Anthropic, you look at them right now and you just sort of say it's hard to catch them. But we also know that this space is moving so fast. And actually, if you look at what Claude Code is, it's beautiful, but it's also something others will be able to replicate in 12 months. So what is the probability that Anthropic forever and ever will be able to have the best model and the best coding scaffolding around it? I think some of these things, some of the margins will narrow over time, and that is of course why they keep expanding their surface area to go after other places, because they know they can't stand still. Everybody's just moving super fast. We got open source, right, waiting in the wings.
Yes.
So much happening. And it's just such an exciting time to be in the tech industry.
Well, let's talk about, because we saw GPT 5.4 Cyber going up against Mythos. We've got this cat and mouse game, haven't we, where when one of the big teams releases a thing, the other big teams release the same thing. We've just spent a little bit of time talking about Anthropic eating the application layer, and rightly so. Here's another round in the chamber. Their cyber tool, Mythos. So I'm going to ask you a bit more in a second as to why ChatGPT 5.4 Cyber could be released into the wild, but Mythos still can't be. So I think that's a really interesting aspect to all this. With Mythos not being released and not being distilled by the Chinese yet, I want to talk to you about, is there enough of a time gap? Is that going to be enough of a little bit of a moti gap away from the Chinese open sources? But let me hand over to you. Give us a bit more of the background and the benchmarks and how this is all happening and how these two tools compare.
Super interesting to see what's going on here. We know these benchmark games are just making everybody's heads spin because there are so many benchmarks now, and everybody's got a benchmark what they score phenomenally well on. So Mythos was, kind of not quite released, but certainly talked about last week. And they were talking about this exploit to vulnerability ratio, which is around, can you find the vulnerability and then exploit it, create some kind of hack using that vulnerability. And they scored 72.4 on that benchmark. And then OpenAI, they released their GPT 5.4 Cyber tool, where they had another benchmark called CTF, or Capture the Flag, and they scored 76% on that. But it sounds like 74, 76, 76 is higher than 74. Does that mean that the OpenAI tool is better? The truth is they're measuring completely different things. The Capture the Flag is a test-solving approach that asks the model to solve known pattern puzzles in controlled environments. So it's the equivalent of what sort of a mid-level pen tester might do if they try to break into a system. Say there is a token, there's some text, there's a flag hidden inside this application or inside this infrastructure. Find a way to retrieve it. And that's a kind of a useful way to see whether you can break in and you can find the thing you're trying to find with some known vulnerabilities. Now, the exploit to vulnerability thing Mythos is testing is different. That is just saying, here is source code. We don't know whether it works or not. You figure out A, whether there are vulnerabilities, and B, you prove that you can create code that exploits those vulnerabilities to get access. Completely different level of benchmark, completely different challenge.
So this is just a prompt, right? This is just anybody, you don't have to be a security engineer, anybody can just throw a prompt into Mythos and it will work stuff out. That's the smart piece, isn't it?
Yes, and they're not challenges that are engineered. It's not a benchmark that says, oh, here is some known problems, some patterns I have to solve. Like you can imagine kind of for humans, do an IQ test, right? Where you say, okay, here's some specific problems I've created for you to solve. No, these are vulnerabilities in the wild that you're trying to find. So it's a completely different level of complexity. And Mythos is just, it's a bar above anything OpenAI can produce right now. And that's also why they've chosen to gatekeep it, because it's been too dangerous to release in the wild.
So that's in Project Glasswing, isn't it? I think they put 100 million in tokens behind the project to give to all the people testing. So it's quite a chunk of cash to say, come on, here you go. Fix all your stuff, guys.
It's amazing PR. I mean, obviously, right now, I don't know if you have heard, they're talking about Anthropic almost becoming accidentally profitable right now. Because
that's a great phrase.
Because they can't acquire enough compute quickly enough, and there has been outages on the platform.
Yeah,
I mean,
I had a couple
fast.
this week. Yeah.
So they can't get enough compute, and clearly revenue has ramped so fast that they've swung into accidental profitability at a point where they definitely weren't planning on it. So, very interesting dynamic.
I also saw that they are actually doubling down in London. Did you see that? They're taking a massive space somewhere near King's Cross, I believe, like another 12,000 square foot. It was quite cute.
No, I mean, it's a wonderful thing and kind of shows the role that London has gotten in the AI economy. I mean, clearly, DeepMind has been kind of the anchor here for a long time, but the amount of innovation we're seeing, the quality of companies we're seeing, just what's happening is phenomenal. It's great to see.
Do you have an opinion on the Chinese distillation piece? And obviously the OpenAI model now being out, the Cyber model being out. It's funny how they also, incidentally, just to raise it, OpenAI have labeled that model Cyber, whereas Mythos is a general model, right? It just happens to be really good at the Cyber piece. So I don't know if there's anything in that, but what about this distillation piece? Will this give the Americans a bit more of a longer stretch away from the Chinese open source, or is it incidental?
Well, the world will only have it if the world has the models. Right now, the world doesn't really have the, but it's very few labs that have access to the model. You could look at it two ways. You could say, we've got a global internet, we're running on lots of open source software, there are lots of vulnerabilities there, likely still. And if they're not patched, then nefarious actors could use that to gain access. And, whatever we think about, clearly China is a rival, it's also a trading partner, right? We've got lots of relationships, but would you want somebody that is a fierce rival to have access to basically all your systems? And you're probably going to try and contain that. The other side, the slightly more nefarious view is, we've got the tech right now. We, as in the West, has got the tech. China doesn't.
What are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah. What, how is that going to be used in the next 6 months while this stuff is, is not widely released? So you could kind of look at it, glass half full, glass half empty.
It reminds me of that Peep Show sketch where two guys, I can't remember their names, they're in the Nazi uniforms, and one turns to the other and says, "Are we the baddies?" It's like I remember my history teacher was telling us obviously all these kind of conflicts throughout the world, and he was like, "Who are the terrorists, Dan? Who are the terrorists?" And like, maybe we're doing nefarious things behind the scenes against the Chinese. Who knows? Let's talk about Sam Altman's prophecy. Maybe it has been fulfilled. Have we seen a one-person unicorn? So I'm sure many people have seen the story of Matthew Gallagher from Medvi in the New York Times or other press. Now, the business Medvi sells GLP-1 weight loss supplements. So this business being able to grow this fast is of no great surprise, with peptides doing what they do and GLP-1 absolutely blowing it out of the water with regards to everybody wanting to lose weight and yada, yada, yada. He has allegedly, and I'm going to come on to why I'm going to use these slightly mealy-mouthed words in a second. He has allegedly built a business from nothing to 400 million in a year, and by his own words, on track for $1.8 billion this year. So why am I using cagey words like maybe, allegedly, blah, blah? Well, the whole thing looks a little bit sketchy, a little bit shady, and I don't think I'm being a total cynic. Some nasty marketing stuff, several class action lawsuits. If you look behind some of the numbers and the reviews on Trustpilot, the traffic and the numbers don't quite add up, but it's all great PR. However, I don't want to talk about the shadiness. People can go and do their own research, make up their own mind. What I wanted to talk to you about, Mads, was, are we now at the threshold of a single person unicorn? Are we there? Will we ever get there? Will we ever see a single person unicorn? And maybe Mads, you can go through some of the things that Gallagher said he's done and how Medvi was built, and we can have a discussion about what we think is real and not so real.
Yeah. I mean, look, he sort of said, I've spent a couple of months, about $20,000, some ChatGPT, some Claude, some Grok, some Midjourney, some Runway. And with that, over a couple of months, I built this new platform. And as you said, he has claimed that it ramped very quickly to hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. He's also claimed net margins in excess of 15%, which just sounds incredible at that level. 2026 projected at 1.8 billion with just 2 employees. So
Him and his brother, right?
Yeah. So that's kind of $150 million a month with 2 guys.
Just buy a yacht, dude. You don't need to do anything. Just buy a yacht. You've done it. You won.
Well, the question is how durable it is. I'd say distribution is real business, right? Costco, Walgreens, Amazon, they're all distribution companies. So the question is not so much the category. And I think what's really interesting here is, however you look at it, that you've been able to create and underpin so much economic activity with just a couple of guys and so much automation. And it's clearly heralding what's to come. How much of the value does Gallagher actually keep? I don't think we really know. 16.2% sounds high. I don't know if I really believe that number. But even if it's 10% or 5%, it's still a very, very attractive business for him, of course. What changes in the world where you have people able to do that? I think, we're probably still not going to fund 2 people distribution teams. I'm not sure it's venture scale at exit, and it's really defensible. But I think there is a real lesson for every founder about just how much you can do.
Yes.
And how radically different you need to think about how you build companies. Smaller teams accomplishing much, much more.
Yeah.
Pharaonic ambition in terms of what you can take on. It used to be you would think, I need to accomplish something big. I need to raise so much money and hire hundreds of people. And it's just not the case anymore. And that's really, really interesting. I think it's really liberating for us as humanity in a phenomenal way. So I'm actually quite excited by it. The specifics of this business put to one side.
It does throw some questions for the investment community. And I was speaking to a couple of buddies yesterday about what we know that a lot of the VC dollars, for example, are now going to have to be put into the marketing and the sales and the go-to-market column, and that brand building piece. Possibly one of the only moats left is that trust and that brand piece. But it also does throw up that people won't need to raise there will be many more niches, many more specialty businesses that can survive because very small teams have got the best lawyer, the best consultant, the best analyst, the best data scientist, the best coder in their back pockets. And I'm always intrigued as to how that is going to play out, not only in the venture capital world, but maybe down through angel investing and smaller businesses, and how that's going to create new economies. There's a lot of excitement to be seen, I have no doubts.
I think you're going to see a barbell, Dan. I think you are going to see these two-man, the three-man, three-woman teams that are doing phenomenal things with limited resource and just are able to bootstrap. I do think if you're trying to do something big technically, going beyond just setting up a distribution business that runs on the rails of other people, i.e. you're actually operating at a frontier, doing something new, having more money, having more resource will help you. And so, yes, there's going to be a team here that tries to go it alone, 2, 3, 4 people, but they're going to be competing with another team that raises some capital and has 30, 40, 50 people, and all else equal, that team will be able to get more done. And so we'll have a better chance of winning. So I don't think you're going to see a complete, nobody will ever need to raise money anymore, but I do think it enables us to go after different things. And we've seen it. The level of ambition we see from teams today is at a completely different scale.
Yeah. I mean, AI has awakened the world in so many positive ways. There's lots of fear, anxiety, and doom and gloom in the headlines because that's what headlines do. But there is a whole world of ambition and drive and excitement, I think, that it is countering those forces. Let's talk about compute scarcity. We've seen a few stories this week in the press around the lack of compute. We've seen some ASML stories and TSMC stories. We saw the Stargate N-scale Microsoft run-in. Tom Tongas wrote a piece about compute scarcity market dynamics, specifically what instigated this segment. So we are at a very interesting moment in time where everybody's looking for those canaries in the coal mine, for those indicators as to how AI is doing, how much compute we need, who's going to make the money. I was looking at the TSMC CapEx spend, and they're still spending. So to me, that's the best lie detector. If the people making the chips are spending lots of money to build more chips, then that's got to be a good test. But Mads, what would you pick up on specifically on this topic? Where would you start? Compute scarcity and market dynamics.
I think you're bang on. People are looking for signs everywhere that this so-called bubble is going to burst and things are going to collapse. And so people were looking at OpenAI's cut in planned infrastructure investment from 1.4 trillion down to 600 billion and saying, oh gosh, does this mean that the demand really isn't there? And I think what's happening is really that Anthropic has taken the leadership and OpenAI likely can't justify the previous CapEx target because yes.
Do you think that? Yeah, interesting.
No, but they are growing. They're growing and it's going to be a successful business. But obviously Anthropic has now taken pole position.
I saw that they were looking to raise at the same valuation as OpenAI today.
100%,
so
yes.
They were looking at basically a 50% haircut. They were doing like 350, I think. And now they're going out. It looks, obviously all PR, we'll see what comes to pass, but at about the same 800 bill as OpenAI, which is interesting.
I just can't wait for these companies to go public, right? These are the most important companies on the planet today, and we need a public price on them. To think about such important organizations and businesses not having a market price is bananas.
It means a lot of openness though, Mads, doesn't it? It will create some transparency that I'm not convinced people will be comfortable with.
Let's see. Let's see. Yeah. They still need capital for their world domination plans, and it looks like capital coming out of the Gulf could be in relatively short supply, at least in the near term. So maybe they do need to tap into the pension money in the public markets. But let's try and look beyond OpenAI, because if we look at the real strong indicators of supply and demand, they say we're still early. Many of the vendors that are selling compute capacity, they sell it on multi-year contracts.
Did you see the trainer company? I can't remember what it's called. There's a trainer company. They sell shoes and they've pivoted to sell compute. Is it Allbirds?
Get in, yes.
Did you see that? I was like, You've done well. You don't want to make shoes. You want to sell compute. Okay, fine. All right. Why not? Why not?
Well,
So
let's talk about why. Because as I said, many firms, they have to buy on multi-year agreements. If you haven't locked in everything you need on a long agreement, you buy in the spot market. And just over the last 2 months, the spot price for GPUs have shot up by nearly 50%. CoreWeave have now said their minimum contract period has gone from 1 to 3 years.
Yeah, I know there's a memory block, isn't there? I mean, there's everything is pretty much blocked, and I dread to think what's stuck in transit. I mean, with all the other shenanigans that's going on globally. I mean, who knows? So
ASML have raised their guidance for the year. TSMC, which is a super conservative company, they've always been the ones that they've always been sort of a bit of a tussle between NVIDIA and TSMC, because NVIDIA is saying, well, just because we were going to build more capacity. Just do it. And TSMC, like, guys, we know you semiconductor, you chip makers, right? You're just like, you're fickle and demand will disappear tomorrow. Then we're stuck with all this equipment we can't use. Well, they are increasing their CapEx guidance 35% year on year, and they're super conservative. So all these indicators, the spot price, the guys that are forecasting, ASML, TSMC, everybody keeps increasing the numbers. What does that tell you? It tells you we are still early in this. Demand is still growing. In fact, it's exploding. And we can see why, because this stuff is so good. We all use it all the time.
Yeah. I saw one of our founders sent me their token bill. They did they're tiny startup. They did 22 grand last month. It's like we're obviously all the tech heads. We're the people who use this stuff and play with this stuff. There's so much of the market still to come online. So we'll see how it all plays out. A nice segue into an absolute massive bet. Elon is doing the PR piece. He's talking about his Terafab. So this is his answer to compute scarcity. Build a chip factory that produces 50 times more AI compute than the entire world does today, and then put 80% of it up in space. Called Terafab. He's looking to spend $25 billion. I think it's in Austin. It's with Intel as the foundry partner, and obviously we'll have Tesla, SpaceX, and xAI all as captive customers. SpaceX merged with xAI in February at 1.25 trillion. People will remember, but it looks like Starlink is the only profitable business, I think. Where all of his other businesses are burning pretty much more than OpenAI and Anthropic combined. We'll see if the SpaceX IPO happens and what happens this year. He's looking for June. But it feels like a PR story where Musk needs this Terafab story to justify the numbers that he's talking about raising against this year. Is that true? And also, can we put compute in space? Does the physics make sense yet, or is this all just PR nonsense? What's the latest your side, Mads?
It's really tricky to find out with Musk, isn't it? Because he makes bold and sometimes outrageous claims, and then you're sort of forced to guess: is he going to go all Musk on it, and it's going to work somehow, or is this just something that's not going to work? Look at what happened over at Twitter, right, or X. He laid off 70% of the workforce, and he's like, it's going to be fine. And it's actually fine. The platform's probably better than it's ever been. So that worked out. He got the EVs on the road. Starlink is a huge success and a hugely profitable success. It's a huge gamble.
What are they doing? They're doing about 11 billion in margin each year. What are their numbers are huge, aren't they? Space.
That's a huge number.
That's Starlink. Sorry, I'm trying to start. Did you say SpaceX or Starlink?
Starlink.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
But obviously, there's a component in SpaceX. So there's a huge component of the business now. And we sort of thought of SpaceX and, that's launch capacity. But actually, Starlink is probably the bigger part of the business now. And that was just something that he said, we're going to do it, right? Because that's the kind of ambition he has and the kind of vision he has. So he talks about this kind of the terafab, which you like the numbers, they look nuts. 1 terawatt of capacity, 20 times the total global capacity of AI is what he says he's going to produce. And more is pretty much as much power as the entire output of the United States is what he's proposing to build in capacity out of the Terafab.
Do we have enough stuff? Do we have enough stuff to build it? I mean, I don't know where all these bits and pieces going to come from.
Well, it's sand, isn't it? I mean, we are turning sand into chips. That's the beauty of semiconductors.
Yeah, I guess the most abundant thing on the planet. Yeah,
But
fair.
on the space stuff again, it looks absurd. I mean, it's sort of, if you think about, he's saying that in 3 years it's going to be cheaper to run AI in space than on Earth. I mean, just the radiators you need to cool 1 gigawatt in a vacuum, the radiators would be 800,000 square meters.
Yeah.
800,000 means it's just a ginormous space, right? And then you have issues around the chip deterioration because they're in space, so they're not insulated. You've got so many technical things to overcome. So all of this just looks a little bit bonkers. And then you come back to the maxim of a lot of people have lost a lot of money betting against Musk.
Yeah.
So, who knows what will happen? I guess he's probably directionally correct, and some of the stuff will end up working. 3 years seems like a stretch.
It's 3 years the timescale. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, let me share my prediction with you because
Go for it.
it's a new section. So I was thinking about, all the topics we've spoken about today. And the one thing I think that is, obviously we don't know the real reality of Mythos yet, but it feels like a really interesting and scary product that is potentially in the hands of the wrong actors gonna cause a fuss. So my prediction is within 12 months, we'll see a major cyber breach that will be publicly attributed, not necessarily to Mythos, but to an AI model, triggering the first AI specific liability legislation. So I think we're going to see something pretty hairy and scary within the next 12 months is my prediction. But you've got a deal of the week, sir?
I do. It's Synera. It's a German software business, and they've just announced a $40 million Series B, and they do some really cool stuff applying AI to engineering tools that support a lot of the great European industrial businesses like BMW and others. I actually think they also work with NASA. And what is that? Well, it's all about saying, look, if I've got all these engineering tools from Siemens and Dassault and PTC and Autodesk and Ansys, and I have engineers jumping around these tools all day long, can I put AI in to help orchestrate, tie it all together? So imagine a little bit like your Claude Cowork, but instead of it being for your email and your Microsoft Office suite, it's for all your engineering tools to help make engineers more productive. And isn't that a beautiful thing?
Loving it. Synera, and it's right in our wheelhouse as well.
Yes.
Mine is not so much in our wheelhouse, but it was Helical. I don't know if you saw these guys. They are solving the problem that drug discovery is slow. So we need drugs, we need them fast. So they're a London-based biotech. They've raised 10 million. It's their second round. They're a virtual AI lab. And basically what they do is they allow you to simulate before it goes to the wet lab, the hypothesis testing cycle. So they do all that in AI, which is very, very smart. And I wish you every success, Helical, with your 10 mil. Get to the next milestone and knock it out of the park. What's happening this week, Mads? What have you noted in your diary that's coming up over the next 7 days?
We already talked about TSMC. They have their earnings call tomorrow, the 17th. So just a reminder, we tape on Thursdays. It might be weekend when you listen to this, in which case the earnings call will already be announced. Indeed. We're going to be watching for the CapEx confirmation. So are they indeed going to lean in and increase their CapEx budgets the way people expect they will? We've also got the ECB Governing Council coming up, interest rates for the EU and for the Eurozone. Markets are pricing an 88% chance of a rate hike.
Really?
Eek.
You
Yes.
could have done that for your prediction. There you go. That would have been ECB output.
We've got the EU Digital Omnibus Trilogue coming up. So that's basically kind of the different institutions. It's the Commission, it's the Council, it's the Parliament, getting together and discussing what to do with the EU AI Act. And the expectation is that there'll be an agreement to start walking back the parts that are seen as most business unfriendly. In particular, how do you figure out how to use data for training in a GDPR world? And there's going to be an attempt to try and, let's just call it what it is, water some of those protections down so that we're not going to tie the European AI industry in too much concrete. We've also got an announcement coming out around the new EU Scale Up Fund. So there's 5 billion euros put up to really help put capital behind some of the great businesses. We've got a short list of managers selected. It's EQT, North Zone, Eurazeo, Atomico, and Vitruvian. And who knows who the lucky
Good. We
group
need
will
some
be.
scale-up capital. Loving it. I saw some people knocking James Wise's 500 million sovereign AI fund in the UK, and I was like, guys, you got to stop knocking this stuff. We need to do this. Just get on board, be positive for Christ's sakes, and support this. This is an amazing thing.
Yeah, I
so
think what's
easy to be
important.
such a misery in this bloody
100%. I think what's important to remember is that actually what we're doing here is we're trying to use market mechanisms to put capital behind things that will make a difference, not just to the companies and people involved, but to the economy at large. And isn't that much better than all the grants that have been given out, often without any sort of real hard ROI behind it or real tangible return?
Yeah.
So much of this stuff, we've seen the work we've done with the British Business Bank. It's profitable for the bank. It's profitable for the taxpayer. Isn't that a great thing, right? So if we can do more of that to help get capital to where it's needed to build businesses and create innovation and jobs, and it gives a return to the taxpayer, so that's just a great thing.
Yeah, I'm going to bang the drum on that one. What have I got in my diary? So I'm going out on Monday with the first founders that I met when I set up my first business nearly, 28 years ago. So there's 7 of us, and that's going to be a real gift. And we've all gone off on our own different paths, and we only get together once a year. So that's going to be lovely. We've got the HSBC term sheet guide on Tuesday. I'm hosting a panel on that. EUVC live on Wednesday. So hopefully meeting up with the guys. They're in London, which is lovely. And we've got a bloody tube strike next week. Come on, guys, let's stop this. Otherwise, you're going to end up like the DLR, fully automated. So that's going to be fun for all of the appointments for Londoners.
You can keep your tube strike. I'm going to be in Amsterdam at the O100 conference, talking to good investor friends about how to scale venture capital.
Is that what the talk is all about? Is that the
believe
thing?
it is.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I love chatting with you. And boys and girls, we'll catch you next week.
See you on the next one.
Upside.